Well, as I promised yesterday, we are going to now move on to the home life in relationship to children in the home, and in this case, verse 4, fathers and their leadership in the home. And as we do so, we find in chapter 6, verse 1, that children are called to obey their parents in the Lord, for that is right. So as we think about that, some children struggle with obedience. They struggle because by nature they're rebellious. Within our sinful nature, we are defiant people. We don't want to be told what to do. And as children grow up, especially if they've not been taught to obey properly, they might find themselves very rebellious against their parents. In many cases, when a child gets old enough to rebel in a strong way, maybe in their teenage years, that comes out in a very ugly fashion. And as a result of that, the home life is disrupted. The children are unhappy. The parents are unhappy. Life is unhappy in general. So the Lord lays down this foundation. He says to children, I call for you to obey your parents. And it doesn't say to obey your parents if they're right, or if they're in line with what you want to do. It calls for obedience. Now, of course, in all areas of obedience, there's always caveats. The Lord never calls us to obey in something that is sinful. The Lord never calls us to do anything that is contrary to His word and His will. So there are these caveats that children don't just follow blindly something that is sinful, but outside of that type of caveat and so forth, they are to obey their parents. And they are to obey their parents in the Lord because it is right. It is the right thing to do. It is the thing God has called us to do. Therefore, it is the right thing. It says, honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may be well with you and that you may live long in the land. Now, he's going back now to the Old Testament. And one of the 10 commandments had to do with honoring your father and mother. As it says here, it's the first commandment with a promise. In the Old Testament, as the Lord gave His commandments to the people of Israel, He said to them, honor their father and mother, and if you do, you will live long in the land. Now, if you go back to the Old Testament promise, what it was talking about there was not longevity or living to 100 years old. It was talking about being able to live in the land of promise that God had given them. So as they obeyed the Lord and followed the Lord, a part of that would be how children treated their parents, even as they grew up. And if they were honoring their parents as they should, that would be reflective of how they were living for the Lord in general. And as a result of that, as they walked with God and lived for God, they would live in the promised land for many, many, many years. And if they didn't, then the Lord would bring judgment upon them, as He told them in Deuteronomy, and they would be brought out of the land. They would become exiles because of their disobedience to God and in the way they honored their parents. Of course, we know from the Old Testament history that that's exactly what happened. They didn't honor their parents. They didn't obey the Lord as they should. And the Lord eventually had to bring judgment upon them and take them out of the land and spread them all over the globe. He brought them back later, but they paid a horrible price for what they did. Now we move on to fathers. It's not just what children are to do, but what about parents? The fathers are isolated here. Not that the mothers shouldn't do the same thing, but the fathers are called to a position of leadership in the home. So fathers, we need to really take this seriously, don't we? Verse 4, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and the instruction of the Lord. So we have a double set of commandments here for the fathers. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger. Some fathers who, because they have the power, they're older, they're bigger, they're stronger, they can control their children, and sometimes they do it in anger. They can become bullies. I want you to obey me and follow my instructions no matter what. And there's no loving relationship there between the father and their children. They just want the kids to obey. That's not the kind of home God calls us to. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger. Do not do things that purposely anger them. That doesn't mean we can't set up boundaries and rules and demand that they be obeyed. It means that there's a way of going about these things that honors the Lord and helps the children as well. Don't make them angry on purpose. And certainly don't make them angry against the things of God by the way you go about leading your home. So don't provoke them to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. What a powerful thing. Sometimes fathers think they've done a good job if they've done things with their children. They taught them how to play sports. They went camping with them. They read stories to them. They spent time with them. And these are wonderful things that every father should do. But the thing that is pointed out here in this passage is we are to bring them up in the discipline and the instruction of the Lord. Are you making certain that your children know the way of God? Are you instructing them in the things of the Lord? Even when they grow up, we can have the opportunity to lay a foundation there or build on that foundation, to instruct, to show them the way of God, to show them by example, as well as the words that we might be able to give. It's a wonderful privilege to be able to have a command like this that we can obey to raise our children in the instruction and the discipline of the Lord. We want to pick up on a couple more commands tomorrow. I hope you can join us.